I still remember the sound before I saw her. Tires screeched somewhere beyond the fog-drenched trees, followed by the crushing metallic groan of steel folding into itself. Then silence, except for the thin, trembling whine of a car horn pressed under something heavy. I had just put my son, Noah, to bed. The old farmhouse at the edge of Hollow Creek had been quiet all evening, save for the usual night chorus of crickets and the wind rustling through the cornstalks. I wasn't supposed to be out there that late, but something about the night felt restless, charged. When the crash came, my heart leapt before my feet did. I grabbed my flashlight, sprinted across the field, and followed the sound of the dying horn. The air smelled like burnt rubber and gasoline. My boot slipped on the damp dirt as I came over the rise, and that's when I saw it. A black unmarked sedan had plowed into a ditch, the front twisted around a tree. Steam hissed from under the crushed hood. The windshield was shattered, spiderwebs of glass glittering in the light from my flashlight. I called out, but the only answer was a faint groan from inside. I ran to the driver's side. The door was jammed. Through the broken glass, I saw a woman, uniform, badge, blood streaming down her temple. Her lips were moving, trying to form words. "Hey, I'm here." I yelled, "Hold on." The stench of gasoline was thick. I yanked on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I looked around, found a rock the size of a melon, and smashed the window with everything I had. Shards rained down as I reached inside and unlocked the door. Her eyes fluttered open, gray, sharp, filled with pain and confusion. "Officer, stay still, all right? I'm gonna get you out." She shook her head weakly. "Gun, trunk." "What?" She pointed toward the back of the car, her hand trembling. "Evidence bag. Don't let anyone touch it." Her voice was broken, barely a whisper, but there was authority in it. "Training. Fear. Too." The smell of fuel grew stronger. I didn't have time to argue. I slipped an arm under her shoulders and another beneath her legs. She wasn't heavy, but limp, and I could feel the warmth of blood through her uniform. I carried her up the ditch, coughing through the smoke, until we were far enough from the wreck to breathe. She tried to push away from me once I laid her down, still mumbling about the trunk. But before I could say anything, the car exploded behind us, flames roaring high, painting the night orange. The shockwave hit my back and knocked us both forward into the dirt. I covered her instinctively. My ears rang. The fire cracked and hissed behind us. When I looked down again, she was staring up at me. Her pupils were huge. You saved me." Her voice was small, disbelieving. "Yeah," I said, panting. "I guess I did." That night changed everything. By the time the ambulance arrived, she had drifted in and out of consciousness. I rode with her to the hospital, ignoring the questions from the EMTs. All I knew was her name, Officer Clara Hensley, and that she kept repeating the same thing even as she slipped into sedation. Don't trust anyone, not even them. Whoever them was. I stayed in the waiting room until the doctors said she was stable. They told me she'd suffered a mild concussion, a fractured rib, and some cuts, but she was going to be fine. She'd been lucky. I wanted to go home. Noah would wake up in a few hours and panic if I wasn't there. But something kept me in that hard plastic chair under the flickering fluorescent light. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the way her eyes looked right before she passed out, like she knew something she couldn't say. When she finally woke the next morning, I was still there. She blinked, squinting against the light. "You again." I smiled. "You're welcome, by the way." Her lips twitched into a faint smile. "Guess I owe you one. You owe me a new flashlight. That one melted in your car." She laughed weakly, but there was something guarded in her expression, like she was trying to figure out how much I'd seen, how much I knew. I wanted to ask about what she said last night, about the evidence bag and not trusting anyone, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I said, "I'll call your precinct. Let them know you're safe." Her hand shot out, gripping my wrist. "Don't." The word was sharp, urgent. It froze me. "Don't." I repeated, "They're your colleagues." She looked away, voice dropping. "Please, just not yet." Her tone made my stomach twist. Something was wrong. Before I could press her, a nurse entered with a tray. Clara instantly shifted her demeanor, smiling, polite, professional. By the time the nurse left, she'd closed whatever window of vulnerability I'd seen. "You have a son, right?" she asked suddenly. It caught me off guard. "Yeah, Noah. He's 7. You mentioned him to the EMTs. Said you needed to get home for him." I nodded. "I'm a single dad. His mom." I hesitated. "She's not around anymore." Clara's eyes softened a little. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It's been just us for a while." For a moment, there was silence between us. The hospital hum seemed to fade, and I caught myself wondering who she really was behind the badge. She looked young, maybe 30. Her hair, tangled and matted with dried blood, framed a face that carried more exhaustion than years. "You really don't want me to tell your station?" I asked finally. She hesitated, then sighed. "Not yet. I need to make a call first." That was a beginning. Over the next few days, Clara stayed at the small hospital on the edge of town. I visited twice, once to check on her and once because I couldn't stop thinking about her. She had that kind of presence, mysterious, quiet but magnetic. When she was discharged, she asked if I could drive her somewhere. Not to her home, not to the station, but to a quiet motel off Route 14. It didn't sit right. "You sure that's where you want to go?" I asked. She gave a faint smile. "I just need a few days to sort things out." I drove her there anyway, even though every instinct told me something about this woman's story didn't fit. As I helped her with her bag, she said, "If anyone asks, you didn't see me." That sentence stuck with me for days. A week later, she showed up at my door. It was raining. Noah was building a Lego fort in the living room when I opened the door to find Clara standing there, drenched and pale, clutching a brown envelope. "Can I come in?" she asked. The fear in her eyes made me step aside before I even thought about it. Once inside, she locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. "What's going on?" I asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." She held out the envelope. "I need your help, Jake." Hearing my name in her voice felt strange. Too familiar. Too desperate. "What's in there?" She hesitated, then handed it to me. My fingers brushed hers, cold and trembling. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Surveillance shots. Some of people I didn't recognize. Some of her. And one that made my blood run cold. It was a picture of her and another man, inside what looked like a police interrogation room. He was leaning close, his hand on hers. Their expressions weren't professional. They were intimate. But that wasn't what made my stomach twist. The man in the photo was my older brother, Ethan. I froze. The air in the living room felt heavier than the rain pounding on the roof. My mind refused to accept what my eyes were showing me. That's my brother," I said finally, my voice cracking. "Why do you have this?" Clara looked at me, her face pale but resolute. "Because I didn't know until last night that he was your brother." "What the hell does that mean?" She sank onto the edge of my couch, rainwater dripping from her coat, leaving dark stains on the fabric. Her hands trembled as she rubbed her temples. "Jake, your brother isn't who you think he is." The words landed like punches. "My brother's a detective," I said slowly, defensively. "A good one. He's been with a force foe." "I know," she interrupted softly. "He was my partner." The room went still. Noah's laughter drifted faintly from down the hall, innocent and distant. I wanted to hold on to that sound, something pure, untouched by whatever storm was about to hit. "You were partners," I repeated, my throat tightening. She nodded. "For almost 2 years. And we were more than that." I felt something inside me fracture. Clara's voice cracked when she continued. "We started seeing each other after the case last spring. It wasn't supposed to happen, and it sure as hell wasn't supposed to last. But it did." I set the photos down, fighting to breathe. The images burned behind my eyes, Ethan's hand on Hayes, the look that wasn't just professional trust but something deeper, messier. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I think is involved in something dirty," she whispered. and I think someone tried to kill me because I was about to expose it. Her words didn't make sense, not at first. Ethan wasn't just my brother. He was a golden boy of the Hollow Creek Police Department. Smart, charming, disciplined. The kind of guy who remembered birthdays, who still called Mom every Sunday. After my wife left, he was the one who helped me rebuild, helped me find this house, even. "You're wrong," I said, trying to sound firm, but my voice came out thin. Ethan would never. "Jake!" The way she said my name, steady, sorrowful, made me stop. "I didn't want to believe it either," she continued. "But there's a case we worked on together, drug trafficking through the county impound lot. I thought we nailed everyone involved. Turns out, we only caught the ones they wanted us to catch." "You're saying Ethan was part of it?" "I'm saying Ethan was the one covering for them." I stared at her, shaking my head. "You don't have proof." Her lips parted. "That's what was in my car the night you found me. The evidence bag. Documents, wire logs, recordings, things that tie him to the operation. I was on my way to internal affairs when someone ran me off the road." The sound of that crash came back to me, the violent crunch, the smell of burning fuel. "You think Ethan did that?" "I don't know," she said, her eyes glistening. "But someone in the department did. Someone who knew I was getting too close." She leaned forward, gripping her knees, her breath shaking. "When I saw your name on the rescue report later, I nearly broke. I didn't know how to face you. But then I realized you might be the only person I can trust." I wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. My brother, a dirty cop, the woman I saved, his lover and accuser. "I can't get involved in this," I muttered. "You're asking me to betray my own brother." Clara's eyes locked on mine. "He already betrayed you." That night, after she left, I couldn't sleep. I kept pacing the hallway outside Noah's room, hearing Ethan's voice in my head from all the years before, coaching me through heartbreak, showing up when my marriage fell apart, promising he'd always have my back. I sat by the window, watching rain ripple across the glass. My reflection looked like a stranger, tired, uncertain, haunted. When my phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m., I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was Ethan. "Jake, you awake?" His voice was calm, casual, the same as always. But now every syllable sounded like a lie. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound normal. "Listen, something happened tonight," he continued. "An officer from my precinct, Clara Hensley, was in a crash. She's missing now. You didn't happen to see or hear anything, did you?" My chest tightened. "Why?" He hesitated. "Just routine questioning. She's been acting unstable lately. Might be mixed up with people she shouldn't be." He was good. So good it made me sick. I swallowed hard. "No, haven't seen her." "All right," he said. "If you do, don't approach her. She's under investigation." The line went dead before I could reply. I sat there, heart pounding, realizing I had just lied to my own brother for a woman I barely knew. The next morning, Clara was still on my mind. I told myself I'd stay out of it. But by noon, curiosity, or maybe guilt, had gotten the better of me. I drove into town and parked near the precinct. From my truck, I saw Ethan step out of the station, laughing with two other detectives. He looked so normal, so sure of himself. For a moment, I almost convinced myself Clara was mistaken. Then I noticed a man who slipped something into Ethan's hand as they passed near the alley, a small envelope. Ethan didn't even glance around. He just pocketed it and kept walking. That image burned in my mind all day. When I got home, Clara was waiting on my porch again. "You shouldn't be here," I said. "I know," she replied, "but I think they are watching me. Maybe even watching you." "What do you want from me?" "I just need a place to lay low for a night. Please." I looked over my shoulder, saw Noah's face pressed to the window. My instinct screamed to protect him. But something else, something deeper, made me open the door. She came in quietly, dripping from another round of rain. I gave her a towel and set some coffee on the table. "Jake," she said after a moment, "do you trust me?" I didn't answer right away. Because if you don't, she went on softly, then you should tell me now. I won't blame you. But if you do, then I need you to help me bring the truth out. What truth? She slid a small flash drive across the table. This is what they wanted destroyed. It's got recordings, evidence logs, transfer reports, everything. I stared at it like it was a live grenade. If what you're saying is true, Ethan could go to prison. She nodded. I know. You loved him. A flicker of pain crossed her face. I thought I did, until I realized he was using me. I rubbed my forehead, torn between blood and conscience. If you're wrong about this, I said quietly, you're not just ruining a man's career. You're tearing apart my family. Clara's voice cracked. And if I'm right, Jake, he's been tearing apart your life without you even knowing it. Later that night, long after she'd fallen asleep on my couch, I sat alone at the kitchen table with a flash drive between my fingers. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I plugged it into my old laptop. It took a moment for the files to load. Most were audio recordings, conversations clipped from police radio chatter, some encrypted logs, and one folder labeled Ethan. I clicked it. Static. Then Ethan's voice. He was talking to someone about a transfer, mentioning cash, names, drop points. At first, I thought it was a setup, some kind of edit. But then I heard my own name. He won't ask questions, Ethan said. Jake's good like that. He trusts me. The room spun. I shut the laptop, heart racing, bile rising in my throat. Clara stirred from the couch and looked at me sleepily. You listened, didn't you? I couldn't speak. She nodded slowly. Now you know why they wanted me dead. Outside, thunder rolled over the hills. My reflection in the window was ghostly pale. I realized the truth didn't just shatter my image of Ethan. It shattered me too. He'd used me, lied to me, and now, somehow, I was part of something dangerous enough to kill for. As lightning flashed outside, Clara whispered, Jake, they'll come for that drive. We have to move before they do. And for the first time in years, I felt the cold, familiar edge of fear cut through my chest. For a few long seconds, neither of us moved. The storm outside rattled the windows, thunder echoing through the old farmhouse. Clara's eyes were steady, but I could see fear hiding behind them. Real fear, not the kind you can fake. I finally managed to whisper, Move where? Anywhere but here, she said. If Ethan knows you have that drive, you and your son aren't safe. The mention of Noah sent a shiver through me. I glanced toward the hallway, where his nightlight glowed faintly under the door. My son, my whole world. I'm not dragging him into this, I said. He's just a kid. That's exactly why we can't stay, Clara said. You think they'll care? If they came after me, they won't hesitate to use him to get to you. Her words were a knife twisting in my chest. I paced across the kitchen, running both hands through my hair. Clara, listen to yourself. This is insane. I can't just pack up and run based on a few audio clips. She stood, wincing slightly from her healing ribs. You heard his voice. You heard him say your name. I did, and that memory was enough to make my skin crawl. But part of me still clung to the idea that there had to be an explanation. Ethan wasn't a criminal. He was my brother. Maybe he was working undercover. Maybe it was all taken out of context. Clara must have seen the doubt on my face because her tone softened. I get it. You don't want to believe it. I didn't either. She looked down at the floor. But I've seen too much of pretend anymore. What do you expect me to do? I asked. Turn him in? His family. Then help me get proof, she said quietly. Help me finish what I started. By morning, the storm had passed, but the unease hadn't. The world outside looked washed out and still, like it was holding its breath. Clara stayed hidden in the spare room while I got Noah ready for school. He noticed the tension immediately. Kids always do. Dad, he said as he tied his shoes, who's that lady? I hesitated. She's a friend who needed help. Is she a cop? Why do you ask that? She has a badge on the table, he said simply, before slinging on his backpack. I forced a smile. Yeah, she's a cop. Cool, he said, and ran out to catch the bus. When I turned back, Clara was standing in the hallway, her expression unreadable. You didn't have to lie to him, she said softly. I didn't lie. I muttered. Not yet. We spent most of the day in silence. She used my laptop to organize the files on the flash drive, while I tried to act like my life hadn't completely derailed overnight. Every few hours, I'd check the road through the blinds. No cars. No movement. Still, a crawling sense of being watched lingered. Around noon, Clara looked up from the screen. There's a warehouse outside town, she said. It's where the impound records are supposed to be stored. Ethan's been logging extra hours there. If we can get inside, maybe we'll find something to prove what he's doing. Breaking into a police warehouse. I asked, incredulous. You realize how that sounds? Illegal, she said with a small, grim smile. Yeah, but so is what they are doing. I rubbed my temples. I've got a kid, Clara. I can't go playing vigilante with you. I'm not asking you to, she said. Just drive me there. You don't have to go inside. Her voice was calm, almost pleading. And somehow, that scared me more than if she'd yelled. That night, when Noah was asleep, I found myself behind the wheel again, driving down a lonely service road on the outskirts of Hollow Creek. The air smelled of oil and wet asphalt. Clara sat beside me, her hood pulled low, eyes scanning the shadows. You sure this is a place? I whispered. She nodded toward a chain-link fence ahead, topped with barbed wire. A faded sign read, Property of Hollow Creek Police Storage Unit. No unauthorized access. The gate was half open. Clara frowned. That shouldn't be. We parked the truck behind a stack of old pallets and got out. The night was eerily quiet, except for the hum of distant traffic. She moved like someone who'd done this before, measured, cautious, flashlight low to the ground. We reached the main door. It was unlocked. Something's not right, I whispered. Stay here, she said, pulling her gun. If you hear anything, run. Before I could protest, she slipped inside. I waited by the door, every second stretching like a minute. The darkness pressed close, thick and humming with unseen life. Then came the sound, faint but distinct. Footsteps. 2 sets. I ducked behind a stack of crates, heart pounding. Through the cracked door, I saw a beam of light cut across the floor. Voices followed, men's voices. One of them I'd know anywhere. Ethan, make sure everything's cleared, he said. If Hensley comes sniffing again, we can't leave any trace. The other man grunted. You sure she's still alive? She won't be for long, Ethan said. My stomach dropped. I turned toward the door, about to go inside, but Clara appeared suddenly in the shadows beside me. Her face was pale, furious. She'd heard it too. She mouthed, We need proof. Quietly, she pulled out her phone and started recording. I could hear my brother's voice echoing off the concrete walls. Cool, commanding, cruel. You get rid of the rest of the cash logs, Ethan said, and burn whatever's left from the January transfers. If the feds come poking, we're clean. My chest felt like it might explode. Ethan, my brother, the man who helped me raise my son, was talking like a mob boss. Then his flashlight swung toward our direction. Wait, he said. We froze. He took a step closer. Another. The beam of light grazed Clara's face. Clara. The silence that followed was deafening. She raised her gun. Don't move. Ethan's face hardened. You shouldn't have come here. You tried to kill me, she said, voice shaking with rage. You ran me off the road. I didn't have a choice, he said quietly. You were going to destroy everything. I stepped forward then, unable to stay hidden any longer. Ethan. His eyes widened. Jake, what the hell are you doing here? The three of us stood there, locked in a triangle of disbelief, betrayal, and fear. I saved her life, I said, my voice trembling. And she showed me everything. Ethan, the files, the recordings. He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. You shouldn't have gotten involved. I trusted you, I said, taking a step closer. All my life, I've trusted you, and you used me. Jake, he said softly, lowering his gun. You don't understand. I did this for us. For us. I spat. You laundered drug money for us. You think it's that simple? He snapped. You think the department isn't rotten to its core? Someone had to survive this mess. Clara's hand tightened on her weapon. You made people disappear, Ethan. He turned to her. And you, what? You were going to blow the whistle and walk away clean? You were in just as deep before you got scathed. Her face twisted. That's a lie. Is it? The tension broke in an instant. Ethan lunged. Clara fired. The gunshot cracked through the air, deafening in the narrow space. Ethan fell to his knees, clutching his shoulder. I rushed forward, yelling, Stop! Enough! But the damage was done. Blood spilled across the concrete, slick and dark. Clara's hands shook around the gun. He went for it. The rain had returned, pelting the windshield in violent bursts as I sped down the service road. The headlights cut narrow tunnels through the darkness, but everything beyond them was a blur of shadows. Ethan groaned in the back seat, half-conscious, blood seeping through the towel I had pressed against his shoulder. Clara sat beside me, gripping the dashboard, her jaw tight. Every few seconds, she checked the side mirror. Where are we taking him? I asked. There's an old cabin north of the lake, she said. No one goes there anymore. We can patch him up, figure out our next move. I shot her a look. You shot a cop, my brother. You think we can just hide him in a cabin? She didn't answer. Her eyes stayed fixed on the road ahead, cold and distant. The silence stretched until the wiper's rhythmic squeak was the only sound between us. Then Ethan spoke, voice weak but defiant. You think this'll fix anything? Clara flinched but didn't turn around. You don't get it, Clara, Ethan rasped. You were in it too deep to walk away. You think they'll let you live after this? Shut up, she said, but her voice wavered. I glanced at her. What does he mean? She didn't respond, just stared out the window, her reflection fractured by raindrops. I tightened my grip on the wheel. Clara. She finally looked at me, eyes shining with something close to guilt. I told you I worked the case with him. What I didn't tell you is that I signed off on some of the transfers. At the time, I thought they were legitimate asset reallocations. It was all buried under paperwork and jargon. But when I found out what it really was, she shook her head. It was too late. Ethan coughed weakly from a back seat. She didn't just sign them. She moved the evidence herself. Half those shipments went through her hands. That's not true. Clara shouted, twisting in her seat. You told me they were cleared for disposal. He laughed, a harsh, painful sound. You were too eager to believe it. The truck swerved slightly as I tried to process what I was hearing. The road ahead narrowed between towering pines, the rain turning to mist. Both of you need to stop, I snapped. I don't know who's telling the truth anymore. Then look at the facts, Clara said. He laundered money through the department. I have the recordings. And she, Ethan said, breathing hard, was the one who helped me do it. I wanted to scream. The weight of their words pressed against my chest until I could barely breathe. The cabin appeared through the trees, a crooked shape of weathered wood and broken shutters, half swallowed by the fog. It looked abandoned, forgotten. We carried Ethan inside and laid him on an old couch. Clara grabbed a first aid kit from the shelf, her hands moving automatically as she cleaned the wound. Despite everything, she was careful, efficient. When she was done, she stepped back, wiping her hands on a rag. He'll live. Good, I muttered, because I'm done running. She frowned. What are you talking about? I'm calling the feds, I said. Not the local precinct. Someone outside Hollow Creek. They'll know what to do. Clara's expression hardened. If you call anyone now, they'll trace it. And whoever Ethan was working with will come straight here. Then what's your plan? I shot back. Hide forever. She didn't answer. I stared at her, at the woman I had pulled from a burning car, and for the first time I wondered if saving her had been a mistake. Ethan's voice cut through the silence. She doesn't want the feds involved because she's scared of what they'll find. Ethan, I warned, but he just smiled, tired, mocking, "She's not the hero you think she is, Jake. Ask her why she was meeting my contact 2 nights before the crash." Clara's face drained to color. "Don't you dare." "Ask her," he shouted, struggling to sit up. "Ask her what she was doing at the warehouse before she got run off the road." I turned to her. "Is that true?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, she whispered, "Yes, but it's not what you think." "Then what is it?" "I went there to meet someone who claimed to have proof of the money trail," she said. "He was supposed to hand over a drive that linked Ethan's team to the cartel. But when I got there, he was already dead." Ethan chuckled darkly. "Convenient story." "I didn't kill him," Clara snapped. "Someone was watching. I panicked. I drove off, and that's when the car came out of nowhere." I leaned against the wall, rubbing my face. "You two are going to drive me insane." "Jake," Clara said softly, stepping closer. "I know how this looks, but you have to believe me. If we can just get this evidence into the right hands, we can bring them all down, including him." Her voice cracked on the last word, but I wasn't sure if it was anger or grief. Ethan groaned. "You still don't get it. There is no right hands. Everyone's dirty. You hand that drive over, and you're dead within a week." Clara turned away, pacing. "That's what you want me to think. You want me scared. But I'm done being scared." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through something before showing me a contact list filled with coded names and numbers. These are the ones I couldn't trust. But there's one guy, Special Agent Keller. He's clean. He's the one who gave me the green light to go to internal affairs. Ethan laughed weakly. "You really think Keller's clean? You're even more naive than I thought." "Enough!" I shouted, the sound echoing off the wooden walls. "I'm done picking sides. Until I see proof, both of you are suspects in my book." They both went quiet. For the next hour, the only sound was a fire crackling in the old stove. I bandaged Ethan's wound properly while Clara sat across the room, arms folded, eyes distant. The tension was thick enough to choke on. When I finally stood, I said, "I'm going to take Noah and leave town for a few days. Whatever war this is, I don't want him anywhere near it." "You can't," Clara said. "Watch me. If you leave, they'll follow you. They'll use your son to get to me. You think I want that?" I froze. "Don't bring him into this." She softened, regret flickering in her eyes. "I'm sorry, but you have to understand. You're part of this now, whether you like it or not." I turned toward the door, desperate for air. But before I could reach it, headlights flared outside. 2 vehicles, pulling up fast. Clara's face went pale. "They found us." Ethan tried to sit up, wincing. "Told you they would." "What do we do?" I asked, already hearing boots crunching on gravel. Clara moved fast, snatching the flash drive and stuffing it into her jacket. "Out the back. There's a trail that leads down to the lake." "Who are they?" "Not cops," she said grimly. "Worse." We ran out the back door into the cold night. Rain misted over the lake, silver in the moonlight. Behind us, flashlights swept through the trees. Voices shouted, male, angry, closing in. Clara grabbed my arm. "This way." We stumbled down the muddy path, branches slapping against our faces. I could hear Noah's laughter in my head, like a ghost of the life I'd had before all this. Ethan looked up at me, eyes burning. "Jake, don't let her spin this." Then he slumped, unconscious. We dragged him outside, Clara pressing her sleeve to his wound. "Is alive," I said, checking his pulse. "Barely," she whispered. "We need to go. Someone must have heard that shot." I nodded numbly, helping her get him into the back of the truck. My brother's blood smeared across my hands, hot and sticky. When I looked at Clara, her face was pale, her lips trembling. "We just crossed a line," I said. She met my eyes. We crossed at the moment we tried to find the truth. As I drove through the dark, Ethan bleeding in the back seat, a terrible thought began to take root. What if both of them were lying? A gunshot cracked the night. Bark splintered inches from my head. Clara fired back, dragging me behind a fallen log. They are trying to flank us, she hissed. Who are they? I whispered. She didn't answer, just reloaded with shaking hands. The lights grew closer. I saw shadows moving between the trees, men in dark jackets, armed and efficient. This wasn't random. It was a hit team. Ethan's voice echoed faintly from a cabin. Clara, you brought this on us. Then another gunshot. Glass shattered. I didn't know if he was still alive. Clara met my eyes, breath ragged. We can't stay here. Then where? She pointed toward the lake. We swim. I stared at her like she was insane. It's freezing. Better than dead. We ran for the shore as bullets tore through the reeds. The water was black, cold enough to steal breath from your lungs. But we dove in anyway. When I surfaced, gasping, I saw the cabin behind us engulfed in flames. And as a firelight reflected off the rippling water, I realized, whatever truth Clara carried, it was burning with everything I thought I knew about my brother. The lake felt like ice slicing through my veins. Each stroke was agony, my lungs burning as I struggled to keep my head above the black water. Beside me, Clara swam with desperate precision, every motion a fight for survival. Behind us, the cabin blazed like a beacon in the night, lighting the fog with an orange glow. Bullets skipped across the surface, sharp cracks in the distance. Then silence, only the hiss of rain against fire and the sound of our gasps. We reached the far bank, dragging ourselves onto the muddy shore. I collapsed, coughing up lake water, shivering so hard my teeth rattled. Clara knelt beside me, chest heaving. We have to move, she whispered. They'll sweep the perimeter. Ethan, I croaked. He's still back there. She shook her head. You saw that explosion. Jake, nobody walked out of that. I wanted to argue, to deny it, but the image of the burning cabin silenced me. My brother, crooked or not, was gone. Clara stood, water dripping from her hair. There's an old ranger station a mile north. We can dry off, regroup. I followed, numb and half-blind with exhaustion. The forest pressing around us, shadows twisting between the trees. Every sound, a snapping twig, a rustle of leaves, made my heart pound. By the time we reached the ranger station, dawn was just beginning to gray the sky. The small wooden outpost looked abandoned, its windows cracked, the door hanging crooked on rusted hinges. Inside, it smelled of mold and dust. A single cot sat in the corner. Clara found a blanket in a metal locker and tossed it to me. You're freezing. I sat down, wrapping it around my shoulders. My fingers were still trembling. Clara, I said quietly, you need to tell me everything. No more pieces. No more half-truths. She hesitated, then nodded. You deserve that much. She sat across from me, elbows on her knees, staring at the floor. 3 months ago, Internal Affairs opened a covert audit on the narcotics division. Someone was moving confiscated cash, millions, into private accounts. Ethan was the last person anyone suspected. He was a golden cop, clean record, perfect image. Her voice wavered. I was assigned to him as a liaison. He trusted me. Maybe that's why I didn't see it sooner. When I did, I reported it to Keller, my contact at IA. He told me to keep it quiet until we had concrete proof. So I kept playing my part. And the warehouse? I asked. That was where the next drop was happening. The plan was to intercept the handoff, catch Ethan red-handed. But someone leaked the operation. The contact I was supposed to meet was dead when I arrived, and a black SUV tried to ram me off the road before I could call for backup. She looked up, eyes glassy. I thought it was Ethan. But after tonight, I'm not sure anymore. I sat in silence, trying to make sense of it all. My brother, the man who'd practically raised me after our parents died, running dirty money through the force. The woman I just risked my life for, entangled in the same web. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked, would you have believed me? That hurt more than I expected because she was right. I stood and paced, my wet shoes squelching on the wood floor. So what now? We can't just hide forever. I need to reach Keller, she said. He's the only one who can verify what's on that drive. You still have it. She tapped her jacket pocket. It's all that matters right now. Before I could reply, her phone buzzed, barely audible. She froze, pulling it out cautiously. The screen was cracked from the crash, but a text glowed through the spiderweb of lines. Unknown number. They know about the boy. My stomach dropped. Noah. Clara's eyes widened. We have to go. Now. The roads were slick with dawn mist as we stole a battered truck from behind the ranger station. I drove fast, hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. My house was 20 miles away, but each one felt like an eternity. When we finally pulled into the driveway, the front door was open. My heart stopped. I jumped out before the truck even stopped moving. Noah. I shouted, sprinting up the porch steps. The house was silent. Too silent. His toys were scattered across the living room floor, one of them crushed. I turned toward his bedroom and froze. The walls were painted with small, trembling shadows. A phone sat on the bed, screen glowing. A video message. Clara picked it up first. The image flickered to life. Ethan, alive. He was sitting in what looked like a hospital bed, bandaged but smirking. Hey, Jake. Miss me? His voice was hoarse but steady. Guess I owe you one. The people I work for pulled me out before the fire took the rest. But here's the thing. You and your little friend have something that belongs to them. He leaned closer to the camera. You give me the drive, I give you your son. Simple trade. My vision tunneled. He took Noah. Clara's hand touched my arm, tentative. We'll get him back. I promise. I turned on her, fury trembling in every word. You promised that last time, too. You said this wouldn't touch him. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't back down. I didn't know Ethan was alive. I didn't know he'd stoop this low. The video continued. Ethan's smirk faded. You have until midnight. After that, I can't guarantee what happens. You know how these people work. He paused, almost wistful. You should have stayed out of it, little brother. The screen went black. I stood there, shaking, the sound of my own breathing too loud in my ears. Clara's voice was distant, like it came from underwater. Jake, listen to me. If we give him the drive, he'll kill us both. But if we don't... I don't care about us, I said. He has my son. She stepped closer. You care enough to make sure Noah gets out alive. That means we do this smart. I glared at her. You think there's a smart way to deal with my brother when he's gone this far? Yes, she said firmly. We turn the tables. We make him think we're giving him what he wants. She pulled a second flash drive from her pocket, identical to the first. Decoy. I made a copy before we left the cabin. I stared at her, torn between admiration and disbelief. And what if he checks it? He won't. He'll hand it off to his boss first. That buys us time. Time for what? To make the real evidence public. Her plan unfolded fast, too fast, but desperation made it sound possible. We'd arrange a meeting with Ethan at a neutral spot, hand over the fake drive, and use that window to upload the real files to a secure server Keller had set up. If Keller was clean, it would all go public within hours. If he wasn't, we'd both vanish before midnight. By sunset, we were parked behind an old freight yard on the edge of town. The place was half abandoned, rows of rusted containers stretching into the darkness, perfect for an ambush. Ethan's message had been clear. Midnight. We had 2 hours. Clara sat in the passenger seat, loading her gun. Her movements were mechanical, but her eyes betrayed the storm inside. Jake, she said quietly, if anything happens to me... Don't. I interrupted. We're both walking out of this. She nodded but didn't look convinced. When the first headlights appeared at the far end of the yard, my pulse quickened. A black SUV rolled to a stop, sleek and silent. The back door opened. Ethan stepped out. Bandages wrapped his shoulder, but he moved easily, too easily for someone who'd been shot 2 nights ago. 2 armed men flanked him. And in the back seat, through the tinted glass, I saw a small shape. Noah. Jake, Ethan called, voice calm, almost casual. You look good for a man who tried to kill his own brother. Where is he? I shouted. Safe, Ethan said. For now. He gestured toward Clara. Let's make this simple. You give me the drive. You get the kid. Clara stepped forward, hand trembling slightly as she held up the decoy. You swear he's unharmed? Ethan smiled. Cross my heart. Then take it. She tossed the drive. He caught it effortlessly, sliding it into his jacket. See? That wasn't so hard. He snapped his fingers. One of his men opened the SUV door. Noah stumbled out, dazed but unharmed. He ran toward me, sobbing. I caught him, pulling him close, relief flooding through every nerve in my body. Then Clara whispered, "Now." I toned. She was holding her phone, thumb hovering over a send icon. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" And that's when the headlights appeared behind us, sirens flaring red and blue. The freight yard exploded into chaos. The red-blue flash of police lights washed across the rusted containers, turning the night into a stuttering blur of color and confusion. Tires screeched, men shouted, and suddenly the air was full of gunfire. I dropped to the ground, shielding Noah beneath me as bullets ricocheted off the metal walls. Clara dug beside us, pulling me toward the shadow of a shipping crate. "Go!" she yelled over the noise. "Get him out of here." "I'm not leaving you." She didn't answer, just peek around the corner and fired twice. A man dropped near the SUV, his weapon clattering across the concrete. Ethan's voice bellowed over the gunfire. "Clara, what the hell did you do?" "Ended it," she shouted back. He looked around, eyes wild, realizing the flashing lights weren't his reinforcements. They were feds, not his men. I caught sight of him ducking behind a stack of crates, clutching the fake drive to his chest. For a moment, our eyes met across the chaos. The look he gave me wasn't fear. It was betrayal. He pointed his gun toward us, but Clara was faster. She fired, the bullet grazing his arm. He stumbled, rage twisting his face. "You think this changes anything?" he shouted. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Clara shouted something back, but her words were lost in the roar of sirens and shouting agents. I grabbed Noah's hand. "Stay behind me." We darted through the maze of containers, searching for cover, for an exit, for anything that wasn't bullets and firelight. Noah was sobbing, his small hand slippery with sweat in mine. "Dad, I'm scared." "I know. Buddy," I whispered. "I know." We turned a corner and came face to face with Ethan. He looked feral, his face streaked with blood and sweat. The gun trembled slightly in his hand, but his voice was steady. "You picked her over me." "Put it down, Ethan," I said softly. "This isn't you." He laughed bitterly. "You don't know who I'm anymore." "Then tell me. Tell me why you did it." His expression darkened. "Because I got tired of pretending. All those years keeping the streets clean while the suits upstairs pocketed millions. I played their game. Jake, I did their dirty work. And when I wanted out, they said no one leaves clean. You could have exposed them." He smiled coldly. "And end up like Mom and Dad." I froze. "What are you talking about?" He took a step closer, lowering the gun slightly. "You really thought that car crash was an accident?" For a second, the world tilted. "What did you say?" "They were in debt, Jake. Deep. Dad borrowed from the same men I work for now. When he couldn't pay, they sent a message. I was 16. I watched them drag the wreck from the river. I swore I'd never be that powerless again. The truth hit like a knife twisting deep. So you joined them." "I survived," he said. "That's more than they did." Before I could respond, a shot cracked through the air. Ethan jerked, eyes wide, and fell forward. Clara stood behind him, gun smoking. I stared at her, stunned. "You didn't have to." "He was going to kill you," she said, voice trembling. Ethan lay on the ground, coughing blood. His eyes found mine one last time. "You should have stayed out." His voice trailed off, then silence. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to feel relief. But all I felt was a hollow ache of loss. He was my brother, broken, twisted, but still my blood. Clara crouched beside him, retrieving the fake drive from his jacket. She looked at me, eyes wet. "It's over." I shook my head. "No, not yet." Because somewhere in that chaos, I saw men, Federal agents, supposedly, moving too methodically. Not toward Ethan. Toward us. Clara noticed too. Jake, something's wrong. One of the men lifted his radio. Target secured. Move in. I grabbed Clara's arm. They're not feds. Before we could move, the men surrounded us. The lead agent stepped forward, face shadowed under his cap. Agent Clara Hayes, he said calmly. You're under arrest for obstruction, evidence tampering, and unauthorized surveillance. Clara froze. What? Drop the weapon. Wait, you don't understand, she said. I'm the one who called you. He smirked. We know. That's why we're here. Her gun slipped from her fingers, clattering on the ground. Two agents grabbed her, twisting her arm behind her back. Jake, she yelled. Don't let them take the drive. I turned, confused, terrified, as one of the agents snatched the flash drive from her jacket. He handed it to the leader, who pocketed it smoothly. Appreciate your cooperation, he said, turning toward me. We'll take it from here. What's going on? I demanded. She said you were with internal affairs. He smiled faintly. We are. Just not the division she thinks. And with that, they shoved Clara into a black SUV and sped off, the convoy vanishing into the night. The silence that followed was unbearable. The real feds arrived 20 minutes later. Sirens, floodlights, confusion. I told them everything, but they just looked at me like I was crazy. There was no record of any operation at the freight yard. No Keller. No arrest order for Clara Hayes. She was gone. They took Ethan's body, logged the scene, and eventually told me I was free to go. But I didn't feel free. I felt empty. Back home, I tucked Noah into bed, brushing his hair back as he drifted to sleep. His innocence felt like a knife in my chest. On the table beside me sat Clara's phone, the one she'd used to send the upload. The screen was cracked, but a single message blinked through the damage. Upload complete. File transferred to secure server. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know where she was or if she was even alive. But I knew one thing. She hadn't given up. 2 days later, a story broke nationwide. Corruption scandal exposes major drug ring inside Hollow Creek PD. Federal investigation underway. The article listed half a dozen names, high-ranking officers, local politicians, and one I didn't expect. Special Agent Keller. He was dead, shot twice in an apparent suicide. I sat on the porch, the newspaper trembling in my hands. Clara had done it. She'd burned them all. A black sedan slowed in front of my house, engine idling. The window rolled down just enough for me to see a pair of familiar green eyes. Clara. She gave me a small, tired smile. No badge, no uniform, just a ghost of who she'd been. I stood, walking toward the car. You're alive. Barely, she said. They'll come after me next. But the truth's out now. They can't bury it anymore. I swallowed hard. What about us? She hesitated. You saved me, Jake. Twice. But if I stay, they'll use you and Noah to find me. You know that. The words hurt, but I nodded. Where will you go? Somewhere quiet. Somewhere clean. She smiled faintly, eyes glistening. Tell Noah I'm sorry. Then she drove away, the tail lights fading into the distance until there was nothing left but the whisper of tires on wet asphalt. I stood there for a long time, watching the road. Somewhere deep down, I hoped she'd find peace. Maybe one day. We all would. But in Hollow Creek, peace was just another story people told to feel less broken. The days that followed blurred together, stitched only by the faint rhythm of rain against my windows and the hollow tick of the wall clock. Hollow Creek was a different town now. Patrol cars moved slower. The local news ran the same story in loops, and the station, where my brother had worn his badge for 15 years, looked like a mausoleum. Everywhere I went, people whispered. Some offered condolences. Others looked at me with suspicion. After all, I was a brother of the man who'd torn a hole through the town's image of justice. I tried to ignore them. My focus was on Noah. He was quiet since that night. Too quiet. He didn't talk about the men, the gunfire, or the fire that lit the lake. Instead, he drew pages full of strange shapes and faces. One in particular kept appearing, a woman with green eyes and a scar on her cheek. Clara. When I asked him why he kept drawing her, he said, because she didn't lie like Uncle Ethan. It gutted me. I spent my nights at the kitchen table, rereading the articles, trying to make sense of the labyrinth my brother had built. His name was everywhere, detailing his role in laundering evidence, covering up cartel connections, manipulating investigations. But there was always a tone of disbelief, as if people couldn't reconcile the man they'd known with the monster described. Neither could I. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night expecting him to call, his gruff laugh on the other end, teasing me about my cooking or scolding me for letting Noah stay up late. But there was only silence, until one morning, when the silence broke. A knock, 3 sharp raps on the door. I opened it to find 2 men in dark suits, badges flashing at their belts. One introduced himself as Agent Monroe, the other as Special Agent Keene. Mr. Lawson, Monroe said politely. We're with the Bureau. Mind if we come in? I stepped aside, weariness knotting my stomach. Keene scanned the living room as they entered. We appreciate your cooperation. This shouldn't take long. What's this about? I asked. Monroe glanced at Keene, then back at me. It's about Clara Hayes. I froze. What about her? She's missing, Monroe said. We know she made contact with you recently. My heart thudded painfully. She stopped by 2 nights ago. I haven't seen her since. Monroe nodded slowly. She's been off-grid since the night of the raid. We recovered fragments of a file upload traced to an encrypted server in D.C., the one that exposed Keller and the department. Whoever triggered it used her credentials. Isn't that a good thing? I asked. It depends who else got a copy, Keene said dryly. The leak compromised several sealed investigations. People are dead because of it. I frowned. Clara wouldn't do that. Keene's gaze was sharp. Wouldn't she? She risked everything to bring the truth out. Or to bury what she didn't want us to find, he countered. Monroe gave him a warning look, then turned back to me. Mr. Lawson, did she leave anything behind? Documents, drives, messages. I hesitated. They noticed. Please, Monroe said, his tone almost gentle. If she trusted you with something, we need it. I sighed, then walked to the kitchen drawer and pulled out the phone she'd left behind, the cracked one that had sent the upload. Monroe took it carefully. You kept this? I didn't know what else to do with it. He nodded. We'll need to run forensics. We'll return it if possible. Keene added, if she contacts you again, call us immediately. They left the card on the counter and walked out. As their car disappeared down the street, a cold unease settled in my chest. Their questions hadn't felt like a search for justice. They felt like a hunt. That night, after Noah was asleep, I sat on the porch with a card in my hand. I didn't trust those agents. Something in their eyes, calculating, careful, reminded me too much of the men from the freight yard. And then, as if the thought summoned her, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Don't trust them. My pulse jumped. Clara? I typed back. No response. I stared at the screen until another message arrived. They're cleaning house. Keller wasn't the only one. Watch your back. My hands shook. I typed again. Where are you? Let me help. A pause. Then, you already did. Protect Noah. And if anything happens, check the lake. Under the dock. You'll understand. The messages stopped there. I tried calling, but the number went dead after the first ring. I sat there for a long time, listening to the crickets and the soft rustle of trees. My mind replayed her last words over and over. Under the dock. The next morning, I drove to the lake. The air was sharp, the water still and glassy. The burned skeleton of the cabin stood in the distance, blackened but somehow defiant against the gray sky. I walked to the old wooden dock, its boards creaking beneath my boots. Kneeling, I ran my fingers along the edge until I felt something wedged between planks, a small metal case, waterproof and sealed with duct tape. Inside, a USB drive. I didn't dare open it on my phone, not with agents already sniffing around. Instead, I drove to the library, found an old public computer tucked away in a corner, and plugged it in. The screen filled with files, videos, photos, reports. My stomach turned as I opened the first clip. It was Ethan, sitting in an interrogation room, talking to someone off camera. "You think I'm the only one," he said, voice dripping with contempt. "You don't even know who runs this thing. She's sitting in your office right now." The camera shifted slightly, revealing the interviewer, Agent Monroe. My blood went cold. He wasn't just investigating Ethan. He was working with him. I clicked another file. This time, a phone call recording. Monroe's voice again, calm and measured. "Make sure Hayes doesn't leave the safe house alive. If she talks, we all go down." My throat tightened. The truth wasn't what Clara had hidden. It was what she'd tried to protect me from. I yanked the drive out, heart pounding. Someone behind me cleared their throat. "Find what you were looking for." I turned sharply. Agent Keene stood in the aisle, badge gleaming. "How did you?" He raised a finger to his lips. "You shouldn't have come here, Jake." My eyes darted to the exit. He stepped closer. "You should have handed that drive over. Now you've seen too much." I bolted. The library door slammed behind me as I sprinted for the truck. Keene shouted my name, but I was already in the driver's seat, engine roaring. The tires screamed as I tore down the road, the world narrowing to a tunnel of panic and wind. I didn't know where to go. Every cop, every agent, every familiar face now felt like a threat. The only person I could trust was gone. Or maybe not, because as I turned toward the old bridge leading out of town, my phone buzzed again. A single message. "Keep going east. You're almost there." It was her, Clara, and even though I didn't know how, I knew one thing for certain. She was watching. The highway east of Hollow Creek stretched out like a scar, long, cracked, and bleeding into the morning mist. I hadn't even packed a bag. Just Noah's photo clipped to the dash, the USB drive shoved into my pocket, and the faint glow of Clara's message on my phone. "Keep going east. You're almost there." Each mile felt like a question. Where was she leading me? How did she even know I was running? The fear pressed against my ribs like a second heartbeat, quick and erratic. I drove through 2 small towns before I saw the turnoff, a dirt road veering into the woods. The message came again just as I slowed down. Half a mile ahead. Red cabin. Park out back. I followed the path, branches scraping the truck as if trying to warn me away. Then the trees parted, and I saw it. A weathered cabin, half hidden by ivy, the windows dark and the porch caved in at one corner. My pulse hammered as I cut the engine and stepped out. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. Somewhere far off, a bird screamed and went silent. "Clara." I called. Nothing. I walked to the porch. The door creaked open before I could knock. She stood there, pale, thinner than before, her eyes hollow but alert. The gun in her hand lowered only after a long second. "You came," she said softly. "I didn't have a choice." She managed a faint, broken smile. "You always have a choice, Jake. That's what makes you different from them." I followed her inside. The cabin was stripped bare except for a table, 2 chairs, and a laptop surrounded by a mess of printed documents. The faint hum of a generator buzzed from the back. "You sent those messages?" I asked. "Yes." She sank into one of the chairs. They traced my phone after the upload. I had to reroute through multiple servers just to stay one step ahead. Monroe and Keene are part of the network. Keller was their scapegoat. I took the seat opposite her. "And my brother." Her face softened with regret. Ethan got tangled too deep. He started laundering evidence to protect someone inside the bureau, Monroe. But when he realized Monroe planned to eliminate every link, including him, he panicked. That's why he called me. He thought if I leaked everything, it would keep his son safe. My breath hitched. "Noah." She nodded. Ethan didn't care about himself anymore. Just a boy. He said if anything happened to him, you'd take care of Noah. He wanted to make sure the world knew the truth before they buried him. The room spun for a moment. My brother, the same man I buried under suspicion and shame, hadn't been protecting criminals. He'd been protecting his family. I pressed my palms against the table, grounding myself. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I didn't know who I could trust," she said. "You weren't supposed to find that drive. Monroe was. He was supposed to destroy it." I frowned. Then why tell me to run? Her eyes filled with something between fear and guilt. Because they know where you live, Jake. They know about Noah. Monroe wants leverage, and you're it. For a moment, all I could hear was a faint click of the laptop's cooling fan. Then I said quietly, "What now?" "We go public." "Again," she said, her voice trembling but determined. "The files on that drive aren't enough. But together, they can't silence both of us." She turned the laptop toward me. Dozens of files blinked open, records of covert transactions, hidden accounts, falsified deaths. One folder was labeled Project Glass. "What's that?" I asked. Her expression hardened. "A database. The Bureau's off-the-books program for surveillance and control. They use it to blackmail local officials, cops, judges, even journalists. Ethan discovered it by accident. That's why he was killed." I felt my blood go cold. "You have proof?" She nodded. "Enough to destroy them. But we need to transmit it through a clean channel before they shut everything down." Before I could answer, the cabin's front window shattered. Clara shouted, diving to the floor as bullets ripped through the wall. I grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the back door. "They found us!" she yelled. We sprinted through the trees as the cabin erupted behind us. Flames licked the sky, smoke curling through the pines. I could hear shouts, men's voices, boots pounding the earth. "Keep running," she gasped. We broke through the trees into a clearing. Ahead, a rusted water tower stood like a sentinel. Clara yanked me toward it, slipping behind the concrete base. "They'll think we ran north," she said between breaths. "We go south. There's an old ranger station 2 miles down." "How do you know they won't be there too?" Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw fear she couldn't hide. "Because there's nowhere left they haven't corrupted." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The gunfire faded. Only the forest breathed around us. Then she reached into her jacket and handed me something small, a locket old and tarnished. Inside was a tiny chip. "What's this?" "The core of Project Glass," she whispered. "If they catch me, you take this to the press. Don't stop until it's out." "Clara." She grabbed my wrist. "Promise me." "I promise." Her gaze softened. "You remind me of him. Ethan, the way you still believe in people." Before I could reply, a distant crack split the air. She jerked violently, eyes wide, a red bloom spreading across her shoulder. "Clara!" I caught her as she fell, pulling her behind the tower. More shots echoed, but I returned fire with her gun, blindly hitting the trees. Then silence. "Stay with me," I said. She managed a faint smile. "You should have left me." "Not happening." She tried to speak again, but her eyes fluttered. Her hand slipped from mine. I pressed down on the wound, my heart hammering, but the blood kept coming. "Come on," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Please, don't do this." Her lips moved, barely a whisper. "Tell Noah his father was brave." And then she went still. For a long moment, I just sat there, holding her, the forest spinning around me. Somewhere in the distance, sirens began to wail. I didn't wait. I slipped the chip into my pocket and ran south, every breath a knife. By dawn, I reached the ranger station. It was abandoned, half collapsed from years of neglect. I barricaded the door and connected the chip to an old laptop. The files began uploading to a secure cloud link Clara had left open. Names, accounts, evidence, everything the Bureau had tried to bury. The progress bar crawled to 10%, then 40%, then 90%. When it hit 100%, the screen went black. A final message appeared. Transfer complete. Data mirrored to media networks. Truth always finds light. I stared at it, tears blurring my vision. For the first time in months, I felt something like peace. Then headlights cut through the morning fog outside. Engines. They were coming. I reached for Clara's gun, checking the clip. 3 bullets left. I wasn't sure if I'd survive the next hour, but I knew one thing. What she died for wouldn't vanish. The truth was out. And maybe, just maybe, justice wasn't dead after all. The ranger station trembled under the weight of approaching engines. Gravel crunched. Doors slammed. Voices barked orders through the fog. I crouched beneath a cracked window, heart pounding against my ribs, gun tight in my hand. The early light spilled pale through the shattered glass, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Through the slit in the curtain, I counted 5 men. Tactical gear. No insignias. Black SUVs lined up like tombstones. They weren't cops. They were clean-up. A radio crackled outside. Secure the perimeter. No witnesses. My breath hitched. Clara's body wasn't even cold, and they were already erasing her. Erasing everything. Then another voice answered, lower, deliberate. Leave him alive. Monroe wants to talk. Monroe. I clenched my jaw. I'd seen his name enough times in the files to know what kind of man he was. Corruption wrapped in a press suit and bureau credentials. The floorboard groaned under my knee as I shifted position. The sound snapped one of the men's heads toward the window. Movement inside, he shouted. Glass shattered as a burst of bullets tore through the wall. I dug behind an overturned desk, splinters biting into my arms. Jake Lawson, a voice called out. You've caused us a lot of trouble. I recognized that voice immediately. Monroe, you think dumping a few files online changes anything, he went on, tone almost amused. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I swallowed hard, forcing my breathing to slow. The laptop beside me glowed faintly, still open from the upload. The last line of text on the screen read, Transfer complete. Distribution confirmed. He was wrong. The truth was already out. Still, that didn't mean I'd survived long enough to see it. I looked around, mind racing. The ranger station's rear exit had long been nailed shut. The windows were too small to climb through. The only way out was forward. My fingers brushed against the edge of Clara's locket in my pocket, the one hiding the chip she'd died for. For a moment, I thought about Noah, about how I'd promised her to protect him, no matter what. I wasn't dying here. Not like this. I crawled to the window, waited for a pause in the gunfire, then aimed carefully at the nearest sub's tire. One shot. The tire exploded. The man beside it ducked, swearing, giving me a few precious seconds. I fired again, this time at the fuel tank of the second SUV. The round hit metal, and flames erupted. Get down! Someone screamed. The blast rocked the clearing, smoke billowing up into the trees. I sprinted through the chaos, staying low, using the wreckage for cover. Don't let him escape. Monroe's voice roared behind me. I didn't look back. The forest swallowed me whole, branches clawing at my jacket, mud sucking at my boots. My lungs boned, but I kept running until the shouting faded behind me. After what felt like forever, I stumbled into a narrow ravine and collapsed against a fallen log. The world tilted. My hand shook violently. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, measured, coming closer. I raised a gun, breath ragged. A man stepped into view, Monroe himself. His suit was torn, one sleeve burned, but his expression was calm. Impressive, he said, almost admiringly. You're tougher than your brother. Stay back. He stopped a few feet away, hands raised. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be. I came to offer you something. I laughed bitterly. You think I'm negotiating after what you did to Clara? To Ethan. His eyes glinted. Ethan made his choice. So did she. And both of them underestimated how deep this goes. He crouched slightly, studying me. You think you expose us? Those files were insurance. Nothing more. The real network, the names, the accounts, the judges, all still hidden. But you could help us find the leak before it spreads further. You help me, and I make sure your son stays safe. The world seemed to still. My voice cracked. You leave Noah out of this. That depends on you, he said smoothly. You've already proven useful. Resourceful. You could start over. New name, new life. Forget this ever happened. I stared at him, pulse thundering. Then I said quietly, You don't get it. I'd rather burn with the truth than live with your lies. He sighed. Pity. His hand went for his gun. I fired first. The shot echoed through the ravine. Monroe staggered back, clutching his shoulder. I stood, aiming again. This ends now. He sneered. blood trickling down his sleeve. You really think you can stop it? You're just one man. Jake! I stepped closer. One man with nothing left to lose. He smiled faintly. That's exactly what Ethan said before he begged me to spare his son. The words hit like a bullet. What did you say? Monroe's smile widened. You didn't know? Your brother was the one who called me. He offered himself up to protect you and the boy. I agreed, on the condition that he'd make sure Clara stayed quiet. I shook my head. You're lying. Am I? He whispered. Ask yourself why Ethan met her alone that night. Why he told her to bring the evidence to him. She thought she was saving him, but he was delivering her to us. No, of course. He changed his mind in the end. Tried to turn on me. Noble gesture. Pointless. He laughed, low and cold. You think she was your savior? She was your brother's executioner. The leaky plan got him killed. Rage flared hot in my chest. I stepped forward, pressing the gun to his throat. You shut your mouth. Go on, he hissed. Do it. Kill me, and they'll call you a murderer. The same way they called your brother a traitor. The same way they'll paint Clara as unstable. You'll bury them twice. My hand trembled. Every instinct screamed to pull the trigger. To end him. But then I saw Noah's face in my mind. The quiet boy with his mother's eyes, drawing pictures of a woman he'd barely known but somehow trusted. If I killed Monroe, it would never end. Another would take his place. Another fire would vanish. Another lie would be told. So I lowered the gun. Monroe blinked, surprised. You're not worth it, I said hoarsely. He smirked. You'll regret that. Maybe I would, but not today. A moment later, tires screeched at the top of the ridge. Headlights cut through the trees. For a heartbeat, I thought it was more of his men, until I saw the paint job. Black and white. Police. Real ones. Monroe's smirk faltered. Impossible. I turned toward the flashing lights. A dozen officers poured out, some from neighboring counties, some wearing FBI windbreakers I didn't recognize. At their head was Captain Rivera, Clara's old commanding officer. He barked orders as his men spread out. Dropped a weapon. Monroe raised his hands reluctantly, face tightening as Rivera approached. You're under arrest for obstruction, conspiracy, and the murder of Officer Clara Hayes, Rivera said flatly. How did you? Monroe began. Rivera cut him off. The data dump hit every news outlet in the country. And guess whose voice was on the tapes? Monroe's jaw clenched as it cuffed him. Rivera turned to me. You all right, son? I nodded weakly. She did it, Captain. She actually did it. The weeks after the storm felt almost unreal, like waking from a fever dream. Hollow Creek was quiet again, too quiet. The same streets that once buzzed with whispers of corruption were now lined with memorial wreaths and fresh coats of paint. The air felt scrubbed clean, though nothing could erase the ghost it held. Everywhere I went, people nodded in gratitude. Some stopped to shake my hand. Some just stayed, unsure what to say to the man whose brother and a fallen cop had exposed a darkness none of them wanted to believe existed. I didn't correct them when they called me a hero. Heroes were people who chose a hard thing when it mattered. I hadn't chosen. I'd just survived. Still, every night when the house grew still, I'd catch myself listening for her voice, her footsteps, her quiet laugh that used to crack through tension like sunlight. Noah slept better now. The nightmares had faded, though sometimes I'd find him sitting by the window in the middle of the night, drawing again. One morning, I peeked over his shoulder. He was sketching Clara, again, but this time she was smiling. In her hands, she held a badge made of light. Behind her stood Ethan, not in his uniform, but in a plain shirt, his hand on her shoulder. What's that? I asked gently. He smiled without looking up. They're together now. You said she helped him find peace. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Yeah, buddy, she did. He studied the picture for a while, then added a small figure standing near the water. Me. And you're still looking, he said simply. I didn't ask what he meant. Later that week, Captain Rivera called. They've closed the Keller case officially, he said. Monroe and Keene are both in federal custody. Turns out Monroe had been running a shadow network for over a decade. Bribes, intimidation, manipulation of evidence. Without Clara's files, we never would have had the leverage to shut it down. I exhaled slowly. She paid for it with her life. Rivera's voice softened. Yeah, but because of her, the Bureau's cleaning house. The new director even ordered her reinstatement, posthumously. She's getting the Medal of Valor. I closed my eyes. She would have hated the ceremony. He chuckled. Probably, but we're doing it anyway. You and your boy should come. She'd want that. The ceremony was held on a bright spring afternoon. The flag fluttered lazily in the breeze, the scent of cut grass mixing with the faint tang of gun oil from the honor guard's rifles. Rows of officers in dress blue stood in silence. When they called her name, a hush swept through the crowd. I stepped forward with Noah, my hand steadying his shoulder. The new bureau director, a woman with tired eyes and a firm voice, handed me the plaque. For extraordinary courage in the face of corruption, she said. For exposing the truth when silence would have been easier. Noah's small fingers traced the engraved letters of her name. She'd be proud. Dad! I smiled faintly. She'd tell us to stop making a fuss and go back to work. The director smiled too. You knew her well. Not well enough, I said quietly. After the ceremony, we lingered by the memorial stone. Clara's name gleamed in the sunlight beside Ethan's, the two engraved side by side. It felt right. Somehow. Rivera joined us, hands in his pockets. She'd have liked this, he said. The truth out in the open. Yeah, I said softly. She finally got it. He hesitated. You know, before she went dark, she sent me one last file. Said it was for you. He handed me a small flash drive. She told me not to open it, Rivera added. Said it was personal. That night, after Noah went to bed, I plugged the drive into my laptop. There was only one video file. I clicked it. Clara appeared on screen, sitting at that old cabin table, the same faint hum of the generator in the background. Her eyes were tired but steady. If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it, she began. And that's okay. I knew what I was walking into. She smiled faintly. I need you to know something. Jake, Ethan didn't betray you. He betrayed them. He played a dangerous game to protect you and Noah. The night he died, he told me you were the only person he ever trusted to finish what he couldn't. Her voice faltered slightly. I didn't plan to fall for you. I tried not to. You were good, too good for what I am. I've done things I'll never forgive myself for, but being with you, that was the first time I believed I could start over. She looked away then, blinking back tears. If I had a second chance, I'd choose differently. I'd choose us. But the world doesn't give second chances, does it? She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Tell Noah his father was brave. And tell him, I loved you both. The screen went black. I sat there in silence for a long time, the weight of her words settling in the cracks of my chest. Then I looked at the locket hanging by the window, the one she'd worn the night she died. The sunlight hit it just right, throwing tiny shards of gold across the wall. I whispered, You got your second chance, Clara. You just gave it to us. Months passed. The story of Hollow Creek faded from the headlines, but the change lingered. People were braver now. Officers spoke up against orders that didn't sit right. Journalists dug deeper. The silence was broken. As for me, I started teaching at the police academy part-time, ethics and field work. Not because I wanted to lecture, but because I wanted rookies to understand what courage really looked like. It wasn't medals or gunfights. It was telling the truth when it could cost you everything. Sometimes, when I paused mid-lesson, I could almost hear Clara's voice teasing me. Don't get too dramatic, Lawson. I'd smile and keep talking. One evening, I took Noah back to the lake. The water shimmered under the setting sun, orange bleeding into violet. He ran ahead to the dock, laughing, skipping stones across the surface. The sound of their soft plunks echoed like heartbeat rhythms. Dad, he called suddenly. Look. He pointed to the far side of the lake, where a pair of white herons lifted off from the reeds, gliding side by side into the sky. For some reason, my chest tightened. Beautiful. I said. He nodded. watching them disappear into the clouds. Do you think people can see us when they're up there? I smiled faintly. Yeah, I think they can. He thought about it for a while, then said, Then she knows we're okay. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I just pulled him close and watched the herons until they were just specks against the fading light. The lake was calm again. The world was quiet. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I didn't feel haunted. I felt whole. He glanced at the smoking ruins of the forest behind me. Yeah, she did. By the time they got me back to town, the sun was breaking through the clouds. Reporters crowded the streets. Headlines screamed across every screen. FBI conspiracy exposed by fallen officer's final act. They found Clara's body that afternoon and gave her a hero's burial. The Bureau tried to spin it, but it was too late. The evidence was everywhere. Ethan's name was cleared. For the first time in years, Noah smiled. Weeks later, I stood at the lake again, the same place where it had all begun. The water was calm, sunlight rippling across its surface. I could almost hear her voice in the wind. You remind me of him. I smiled faintly. Guess you were right. Behind me, a small voice called, Dad! Noah ran down the path, holding something shiny in his hand. The locket. It washed up near the dock, he said, handing it to me. I opened it. Inside, beside the microchip slot, was a folded scrap of paper I hadn't seen before. One line, written in Clara's careful handwriting. If you're reading this, it means the truth won. Take care of him, for both of us. My throat tightened. I looked out across the lake, sunlight glinting off the water like a promise kept. And for the first time since it all began, I felt like I could finally breathe.